Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Ansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Nitai Namine Che Namirhate Shadamunyenam Dite Chere Nitai Namine Che Namirhate Shadamunyenam Dite Chere. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Janmashtami here at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Today we'll be reading 29 verses throughout the day, selected verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a thread. It has some common sense because these verses that I'll read today from the 10th Canto throughout the day, and which we can discuss, interspersed with bhajans that you feel will be appropriate, are Prabhupada's most quoted verses from the 10th Canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Telling in itself, I have a desire that I could see sometime in my mind's eye the way Valmiki saw the Ramayana when Prabhupada memorized these verses and in what circumstances. I think the first step to any of this is to go through the verses one after another today. Do you think we could make through 29? I think so. We have a little extra time today. The first one is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 1st chapter, and it's text number 4. This chapter is the Advent of Lord Kṛṣṇa, also called the Introduction. And here we have the gathering of the devotees, the demigods who pray to Kṛṣṇa to appear in the world. There's a need. The material world is often out of balance. Although Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Sri Ishapanishad says that it's perfectly complete. But because Prabhupada says of incomplete knowledge of the complete whole, people fall out of this harmony with the universe and they forget about their real purpose. So Kṛṣṇa comes on regular schedule and by the request of his devotees to this world to give mercy. anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham dehamashita bhajate tadrishi krida yashutva tatparo bhavet. The Srimad Bhagavatam says that anugrahaya, Krishna gives special mercy to the bhaktas. Manusham deha means that he comes in a human-like form to this world. And bhajate tadrishi krida, he performs his lila, his pastimes in this world. Why? Yashutva tatparo bhavet. What else are you going to talk about? The news? Good luck with that. The Lord comes and performs his lila, his pastimes. And therefore, yashutva tatparo bhavet. When, after he comes, the devotees hear about his pastimes, they have all the potencies of the Lord himself. And Jiva Goswami comments on the last verse in the 10th canto, which is Jayati janani vaso devaki janmavado yaruvara parishat swaira dora vir asyana dharmam stirachara vijinana susmita shrimukhena rajapura vanitanam vardayang klamadevam. This verse is spoken in the present tense, says Jiva Goswami. Spoken by whom? Shukadeva Goswami. After finishing the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna's Leelas in Vrindavan and Mathura and Dwarka, and hearing the prayers of all the devotees from those various realms, he's sensing that there may be some feeling of separation in the hearts of all of us here today. Because here we are celebrating Krishna's appearance more than 5,000 years after. Krishna, of course, we know from the Bhagavatam, Krishna swadamo pagate dharma ganadi bisaha kalonasha drishamesha purar narko donoditaha. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen after Krishna leaves. And the Bhagavatam comes out in a bold way, strong way, says Krishna swadamo pagate. After Krishna leaves this world personally, then he appears in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's the source of all inspiration to every living being. And he gives the clear knowledge to understand the self, but more than that, he also performs his pastimes, lila, and therefore everyone can derive the greatest happiness from the literature itself after Krishna's left our vision. But Jiva Goswami senses that, or Shukadeva senses that still there'll be a lament by the people in general that, why did I miss it? Why am I 5,000 years late? Couldn't I have been here to see Krishna in his pastimes in Vrindavan and Mathura and Dwarka? And this is Shukadeva, says Jiva Goswami, assuring us, Jayati, he's still here. And he's still victorious. At this very time, he's present with us. When he makes his advent, he's showing us that he's always here. He's here for the devotees whenever they chant Hare Krishna. He says, I'm not in the hearts of the yogis. I'm not in the minds of the jnanis, but I'm wherever the devotees are chanting my glories. And so Jayati Janani Vaso Devaki Janmavado means he walks amongst the people. He's the friend of the yadus. He cuts down those who are irreligious and he lifts up the pious. He increases the amorous desires of the gopis of Vrindavan by a smile. But he's still here, present, for anyone who enters into the process of devotional service. And this is indicated in the verse that we're about to hear, one of the most frequently quoted verses by Srila Prabhupada about Krishna's appearance in this world. And this verse appears itself as the fourth verse of the first chapter of the 10th canto. And so let's chant it. I'll say, then please repeat, and then we'll take a couple of chanters. Nivṛtta-tarṣair upagīyamānād Bhavaushadashotra mano virama. Ka utamashloka gunanuvada. Puman virajeta vina pashugna. And now let's look at the words for word. Words for word. Word meanings. Nivṛtta. Released from. Tarṣair. Lust or material activities. Upagīyamānād. Which is described or sung. Bhava-ashodāt. Bhava-ashodāt. Which is the right medicine for the material disease. Shotra. The process of oral reception. Mana. The subject matter of thought for the mind. Abhiramād. From the pleasing vibrations from such glorification. Ka. Who. Uttama shloka. Of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Guna anuvādāt. From describing such activities. Puman. A person. Virajeta. Can keep himself aloof. Vana. Except. Pashugnāt. Either a butcher or one who is killing his own personal existence. Translation. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? And here's Prabhupada's purport. In India, it is the practice among the general populace to hear about Krishna, either from Bhagavad Gita or from Srimad Bhagavatam, in order to gain relief from the disease of repeated birth and death. Although India is now fallen, when there is a message that someone will speak about Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, thousands of people still gather to hear. This verse indicates, however, that such recitation of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam must be done by persons completely free from material desires, nivṛtta-tarṣair. Everyone within this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is full of material desires for sense enjoyment, and everyone is busy in sense gratification. But when thus engaged, one cannot fully understand the value of Krishna Katha, either in the form of Bhagavad Gita or in Srimad Bhagavatam. If we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from liberated persons, this hearing will certainly free us from the bondage of material activities. But hearing Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by a professional reciter cannot actually help us achieve liberation. Krishna Katha is very simple. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As he himself explains, Mattak parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. O Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Simply by understanding this fact, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become a liberated person. But especially in this age, because people are interested in hearing Bhagavad Gita from unscrupulous persons who depart from the simple presentation of Bhagavad Gita and distort it for their own personal satisfaction, they fail to derive the real benefit. There are big scholars, politicians, philosophers, and scientists who speak on Bhagavad Gita in their own polluted way, and people in general hear from them, being uninterested in hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a devotee. A devotee is one who has no other motive for reciting Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam than to serve the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to hear the glories of the Lord from a realized person. Bhagavata parodhiya bhagavata stani. Unless one is personally a realized soul in the science of Krishna consciousness, a neophyte should not approach him to hear about the Lord, for this is strictly forbidden by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who quotes from the Padma Purana, Avaishnava mukhaṃ putam harikatam ritam shravana naiva kartavyam sarpo chishtam yatapaya. One should avoid hearing from a person not situated in Vaishnav behavior. A Vaishnav is nivṛtta-tarṣair, that is, he has no material purpose, for his only purpose is to preach Krishna consciousness. So-called scholars, philosophers, and politicians exploit the importance of Bhagavad Gita by distorting its meaning for their own purposes. Therefore, this verse warns that Krishna Katha should be recited by a person who is nivṛtta-tarṣair. Shukadeva Goswami epitomizes the proper reciter for Srimad Bhagavatam, and Parikshit Maharaj, who purposefully left his kingdom and family prior to meeting death, epitomizes the person fit to hear it. A qualified reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right medicine, bhavaushadhi, for the conditioned souls. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to train qualified preachers to recite Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world, so that people in general in all parts of the world may take advantage of this movement and thus be relieved of the threefold miseries of material existence. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita and the descriptions of Srimad Bhagavatam are so pleasing that almost anyone suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence will desire to hear the glories of the Lord from these books, and thus benefit on the path of liberation. Two classes of men, however, will never be interested in hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam: those who are determined to commit suicide and those determined to kill cows and other animals for the satisfaction of their own tongues. Although such persons may make a show of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam at a Bhagavata Saptaha, this is but another creation of the karmis, who cannot derive any benefit from such a performance. The word pashugnat is important in this connection. Pashugna means butcher. Persons fond of performing ritualistic ceremonies for elevation to the higher planetary systems must offer sacrifices, yagyas, for killing animals. Lord Buddhadev therefore rejected the authority of the Vedas because his mission was to stop animal sacrifices, which are recommended in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Nindasi yavidhe ahaha shruti jatam sadaya hridaya darshita pashugatam keshavadrita buddha sharira jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare. Even though animal sacrifices are sanctioned in Vedic ceremonies, men who kill animals for such ceremonies are considered butchers. Butchers cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness, for they are already materially allured. Their only interest lies in developing comforts for the temporary body. Bhogaishvarya prasakdanam taya prahita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadao navadiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Manushya Jannam Mapaya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya Jani Ashuniya Visha Kainu. Anyone who is not Krishna conscious and who therefore does not engage in the service of the Lord is also pashugna, for he is willingly drinking poison. Such a person cannot be interested in Krishna Katha because he still has a desire for material sense gratification. He is not nivṛtta-tarṣair. As it is said, Traivargikas te purusha vimukha hari medasa. Those interested in Trivarga, that is, in dharma, artha, and kama, are religious for the sake of achieving a material position with which to gain better facilities for sense gratification. Such persons are killing themselves by willingly keeping themselves in the cycle of birth and death. They cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness. For Krishna Katha, topics about Krishna consciousness, there must be a speaker and a hearer, both of whom can be interested in Krishna consciousness if they are no longer interested in material topics. One can actually see how this attitude automatically develops in persons who are Krishna conscious. Although the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement are quite young men, they no longer read materialistic newspapers, magazines, and so on, for they are no longer interested in such topics, nivṛtta-tarṣair. They completely give up the bodily understanding of life. For topics concerning Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master speaks and the disciple hears with attention. Unless both of them are free from material desires, they cannot be interested in topics of Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Kṛṣṇa. I'll start over. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Kṛṣṇa, because simply by understanding Kṛṣṇa and by talking about Kṛṣṇa, one becomes a perfectly learned person. Yasmin vignate sarvam evam vignatum bhavati. The Lord sits within everyone's heart, and by the grace of the Lord, the devotee receives instructions directly from the Lord himself, who says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham vriddhi sanivishto matakshmitir jnanam apohanam cha vedaishta sarver ahameva vedyo vedanta krid veda vedeva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Krishna consciousness is so exalted that one who is perfectly situated in Krishna consciousness, under the direction of the spiritual master, is fully satisfied by reading Krishna Katha as found in Srimad. I'm going to repeat that. It's too nice, so I got to say it again. Krishna consciousness is so exalted that one who is perfectly situated in Krishna consciousness under direction of the spiritual master is fully satisfied by reading Krishna Katha. That's found in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and similar other literatures. Since merely talking about Krishna is so pleasing, we can simply imagine how pleasing it is to render service to Krishna. When discourses on Krishna Katha take place between a liberated spiritual master and his disciples, others also sometimes take advantage of hearing these topics and also benefit. These topics are the medicine to stop the repetition of birth and death. The cycle of repeated birth and death, by which one takes on different bodies again and again, is called bhava, or bhava rog. If anyone willingly or unwillingly hears Krishna Katha, his bhava rog, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Again, I will repeat, for effect. If anyone willingly or unwillingly hears Krishna Katha, his bhava rog, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Therefore, Krishna Katha is called bhavaushadha, the remedy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Karmis, or persons attached to material sense enjoyment, generally cannot give up their material desires. But Krishna Katha is such a potent medicine that if one is induced to hear Krishna kīrtan, he will certainly be freed from this disease. A practical example is Dhruva Maharaj, who at the end of his tapasya was fully satisfied. When the Lord wanted to give Dhruva a benediction, Dhruva refused it. Swamin kritartosmi varam na yache. My dear Lord, he said, I am fully satisfied. I do not ask for any benediction for material sense gratification. We actually see that even young boys and girls in the Krishna consciousness movement have given up their long practice of bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, because Krishna consciousness is so potent that it gives them full satisfaction. They are no longer interested in material sense gratification. So the austerity of Krishna consciousness is not like the austerity of the jnanis, who militantly try to restrain their senses. But as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasa dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param vishva nivarte. Very satisfying verse which shows us the way that one becomes victorious in one's struggle with the senses, which Krishna mentions is the status quo for all living beings in this world. He mentions in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that the living beings are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And when one gets the opportunity to perform devotional service by hearing Krishna kīrtan and by hearing the Krishna katha and rendering service, as Prabhupada mentioned in the same sentence, then there's a way that one gains a higher taste. And this is mentioned at the outset of the discussion at Naimsharanya, when Sutta Goswami says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janiyat Yashvairagyam Yanam Chayarahaitukam. When you render service to Krishna, the side benefits are that you get knowledge and detachment from the world. It's natural. And Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada is quoted in this purport, Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam taya prahita chetasam vevasya makya buddhir samadau navadiyate. When one's preoccupied by the objects of the senses in this world, sorry to be so abstract, but I'll try to get to a point. That is that it's very difficult to concentrate. Why do you go to the library to study? Because there's no noise there. There's no distraction. In general, when people want to focus on a subject, they try to go to a quiet place. They try to minimize the amount of distractions that come to the senses. It's impossible to concentrate fully or become absorbed in a subject matter unless when one is distracted. And the great distraction of this world are the senses pulling in various directions. Who can remember the verse from Prahlad Maharaj in which he mentions that he's pulled in various directions? Look it up. Huh? Jiva kato chutapchiptam hartipta shishnon yatasparudaram shravanam katayam. Okay, look it up. In his prayers, Prahlad mentions that the senses are pulling us in various directions and it's hard to concentrate. So the idea behind anyone performing some tapasya, the student going to the library, or a person deciding to follow four regular principles, and so forth, these are kinds of tapasya, is to limit the onslaught of the senses so that one can focus. In the beginning, Krishna consciousness, some austerity is needed in order to gain traction, because if you try to light a fire while pouring water on it, it'll extend the time it takes to start the fire. However, when one hears in the association of devotees, pure devotees, who have no other objective except to glorify Krishna, Then, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashavairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. Naturally, knowledge and detachment comes as a byproduct, and one feels detached from the world. That's one of the benefits of hearing Krishna Katha. And it's being mentioned here as bhavaushadhi, or the medicine that cures the disease of birth and death. I personally find that extraordinary and inviting, because I, for one, am a little annoyed with the system of material life by which there are various ailments that are either not diagnosable, or when diagnosed, the caregiver says, we can treat the symptoms, but we can't cure the disease. Have you ever had that? We know what it is, but there's no cure for it. We can only make you more comfortable. And the so-called comfort that comes from the so-called remedy has its side effects as well. Therefore, this message, nivṛtta-tarṣair upagīyamānād, that there is a remedy for all of the ills of life, which are caused by the bodily conception of life in general, is welcome news, wouldn't you say? Because by hearing Krishna Katha, one has the bhavaushadhi. Bhava means the repeated birth and death in the material world. And when we take to hearing Krishna Katha, it frees us from our entanglement in the material world altogether. That's why Krishna mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita, especially to fixate upon his activities in the world. That's what's known as Krishna Katha. And he says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvata tyakva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sojan. Again, here he says that if you can understand in truth, if you know the tattva of my birth and activities, and you know that it's divyam, it's not ordinary, then tyakva deham, when you tyakva, you give up your deham, your body. It's like, tyakva deham punarjanma naiti means you don't have to take birth again in the material world. You're not forced. Your consciousness is prepared to go on serving Krishna, for which Krishna gives full facility in the next life for such persons. So this verse is an introductory verse to the whole chapter. We've been told in the early parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam the importance of gradual purification, starting from even the second canto. Shukadeva Goswami mentions to Parikshit Maharaj and to all of us that one has to gradually transfer one's attention away from sense gratification to the Lord. And he begins by talking about the universal form of the Lord. That one may begin to see everything in the world as the Lord's body. For instance, the mountains are the stacks of his bones, and the rivers are his veins, and the clouds are the hair on his head. And elsewhere it's described how the birds of the world are his artistic sense, and so on. And then he talks about the ways in which one may fix one's attention on the supersoul within the heart. And these are ways in which Shukadeva Goswami is saying, gradually move your attention to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But, anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham dehamashita. It's especially merciful when Krishna comes as a person, because although seeing the mountains and the sky and appreciating that it's part of the Lord's body is certainly edifying. And trying to see the supersoul within, well, that may be a little difficult. But we like people because we're people. And therefore, anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham dehamashita. when Krishna comes as a person, and bhajate tadrishi kridha, and he performs activities, now that's interesting. Now we're interested in people in this world, true or false? Yes? However, there's a shelf life on their activities. And people tend to die and get old and so forth. Krishna doesn't get old, nor does he die. That's why he says, Janma karma che me divyam. Try listening to my activities and my birth rather than ordinary people. The activities of ordinary people, the births of ordinary people. Because there's a great benefit to it. And that's the great benefit of Krishna Katha is that we're naturally interested in hearing about somebody. And we would like to hear about friendships. And we'd like to hear about relationships of various kinds. And Krishna has relationships. And he has activities which boggle the mind. In fact, it's mentioned when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching Sanatana Goswami, he says, the opulence of Krishna's activities are so great. This is a silent request. That hearing of his great opulence purifies the mind, just by hearing about it. So we're embarking on this process today of hearing Krishna's various pastimes. We'll also chant, because as this verse says, nivṛtta-tarṣair upagīyamānād bhavauṣadat shotra mano biramat, that the sound vibration itself is very pleasing, and when it goes into the ear, it enters into the heart, and then it's naturally transformative, brings us to the next level. Let's see if you have any reflections or questions on this first of our 29 verses for today. But first I want to dedicate today's classes and verses to Gandharvika Radha, because I miss her. And I just remember from the old days, when we first started doing Janmashtami in the old temple, and we'd sit all day long and hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Even when other people had to go do other services or go to work or whatever it was, she never left. And she'd always be there leaning in to hear Krishna Katha. So we're remembering Gandharvika Radha Devi Dasi on this day, and praying that wherever she's continuing her devotional service, we may all be back together again to go on with our Krishna Katha. Please go ahead, Risheshwari Leela.
One question that comes to my mind while going through this purport was, in the case of professional reciters, I understand how Prabhupada is saying that the intention of the person who's speaking and the intention of the person who's hearing, both are important to get the maximum benefit of the absolute knowledge. My question is the absolute knowledge isn't potent by itself to purify both the speaker and the hearer, so that eventually they are uplifted from that desire for sense gratification? Is that possible?
Fortunately, your question has been asked and answered in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's asked by Parikshit Maharaj himself, which is the beginning of the prayers personified Vedas. He wants to know, how is it that the material apparatus, eardrum, the air through which the sound is carried, the air through which it's carried, and so forth, through this medium can be translated into a spiritual vibration or not. And the answer that Shukadeva Goswami gives is based on two previous conversations with Narayan Rishi and one with the Kumaras that go back into antiquity. So it's a perennial question, that how is it that the spiritual vibration comes through. And in your case, the question is that if you're saying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and you're thinking that I am Krishna, I am Krishna, I am Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Why is there a difference in the vibration? Because that's what's being said here, is that you get a different result. Avaishnava mukund girnam putam harikatamritam Shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpotishta yatapaya. That's the verse from the Padma Purana that says if somebody is a non-Vaishnav, it doesn't mean that they don't belong to ISKCON or something like that. It means they don't believe there is a Vishnu. Vishnu means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A Vaishnava is somebody who worships Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if there is somebody who has an errant understanding of God, especially a sense of Mayavad, that the names of the demigods are the same as Krishna. You can chant any name, Shiva, Shiva, Durga, Durga, Ganesh, Ganesh, and Krishna, Krishna, and it's all the same thing. Because of that, the verse says, they're Vaishnavas. They're not Vaishnavas because they don't believe in Vishnu, who's the supreme deity of all. And so, from that, what we get is an analogy that if you have nice milk from Bhakti Farms, and you leave it on your counter at night, and somehow your pet snake gets out and starts drinking it in the morning, you'd probably have second thoughts about offering to Krishna and eating it yourself, because as much as you love your little snake, maybe some of the poison came out of his fangs into the milk. It makes it suspect. And that's what the verse says. Sarpochishta yatapaya. It's just like a snake drank your milk. And then do you want to have a little nip of that snake poison in your milk? Not so much. And so back to the answer. The answer is because Krishna is a person. And he's responsive. He responds. In fact, we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we read the other day perhaps here together, that Yoga Maya, Mahamaya, they're the same energy, only they're apportioned according to one's attitude. If one is Duryodhan, then Mahamaya acts. If one is Vidura, then Yoga Maya acts. And it's interchangeable. Prabhupada gives the example of an electrician knows how to use a machine to make heat or cool. I believe it's a Mitsubishi or something like that at home. It's a heater and a cooler, all in one machine. And similarly, Krishna controls all of the energies, and it's not some mechanical process, but Krishna understands the attitude. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham, and acts accordingly to adjust the energy and the response to the person's chanting. And therefore, in the environment is surcharged when you hear pure devotees chant Hare Krishna. In fact, it's noted by Prataparudra Maharaj when on the roof they're watching the various devotees come from Navadvip in the Beta Kirtan pastimes in the Madhya Lila. All the devotees are coming from Navadvip. They're all pure devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore also Radha Krishna. And as they come, Gopinathacharya, who's there to introduce everybody because he's familiar with everyone from Navadvip. He has ties there. And he's telling Prataparudra, this is this person, that's that person, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is also there. Gopinathacharya, exalted soul. In fact, his next life, he became Baladev Vidyabhushan to write the Govinda Bhashya, because he was there with, this is still a side thing, he was there with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was explaining Vedanta to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So he got it all. In his next life, he was empowered to speak the Govinda Bhashya. In any case, in witnessing the devotees coming from Navadvip, Bengal, and they were performing kirtan. As they approached, Prataparusha says, I've never heard any kirtan like this. And Gopinath Acharya said, this is prem kirtan. It's a little different than you might hear elsewhere with somebody who's doing it for money or so. It's a different quality. So the world's personal, and the responses that we get are personal. In fact, any response the devotee gets from the environment of this world, tatenu kampam susamikshimano, the devotee understands this Krishna's personal direction to me. And so he adjusts accordingly. When you speak Hare Krishna, speak the Maha Mantra, or you organize a program and you're chanting Hare Krishna, but you're also thinking same, Ganesh same, Durga same, Hare Krishna same. And who are these Hare Krishna guys who think that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God? Anyway, that's a different vibration. And it's saying here that don't listen to that vibration. Everything counts, everything matters. It's not mechanical. It has to do with the heart. And it's very subtle and it's very personal. And therefore, when we're in the association of an exalted person who's actually controlling his or her senses, we feel it. We feel it more than if somebody's drinking water underwater on a fast day. You know that? If I'm fasting and they go underwater, and then their vibration is different. They can't have the same vibration. They're not empowered to have the same vibration. Krishna's there in their heart. One little tiny adjustment in surrender to Krishna changes your vibration completely. That's why it's exciting. It's not mechanical. We hate mechanical stuff, don't we? We even hate AI. Doesn't it make you sick? It's just a reflection of all the stuff that's floating around anyway, and it's, so what if it has good grammar? It's just telling you what everybody else also knows. We want something from beyond the closed system of the material nature. We want something to come through to us. That's what we're all waiting for. So when you hear the sound vibration of somebody who's surrendered to Krishna, that's different because nobody's surrendered to Krishna. Everyone's got something on the side. But Krishna gives this thing, sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharana. And if the simplest person takes advantage of it, even if they're a monkey or a worm, then we can feel it. It's a different interaction altogether. It goes beyond this material world. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abhadyavatipi. Namanyanantasya yashonkitani shrinvanti gayanti grananti sadhava. That the vibration of the Srimad Bhagavatam, all these prayers we're hearing from these pure devotees, that's different. It's a different vibration altogether because they don't care about the material world anymore. And so we can understand from that Prayers Personified Vedas discussion. It's a very personal matter. And Krishna is adjusting from within the heart, the vibration as it comes out. Just like the electrician, you can switch the switch, hot can come out or cold can come out from the same machine. Same voice box, different vibration. Okay? All right. Mukharavind.
Maharaj, in the first part of the this purport, Prabhupada was saying about this, what Mataji was also mentioning, like how that distorted the meaning. And this morning when I was hearing Prabhupada, he was just chuckling, like he was telling that people say that I did magic and this, that, but he told that I just presented Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's the only thing I did. There's so much distortion of the meaning that people try to do, and only thing I did is I presented Bhagavad Gita, and that's what is the real magic.
Yeah, and what gets in the way of presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is? Someone wants to present their version so they can get some accolades that, oh yeah, yours is definitely interesting. And one might think, oh, just speaking Krishna Katha directly and representing what the Acharya said, oh, that's, how am I going to get anything out of that? When the devotees, Western devotees, went back to India, Prabhupada had a scheme. Because in India, people weren't taking to his movement. They thought... And then, so he came to America, and the Westerners jumped in, and he took him back to India. When they first went back to the some of the places in India and did their kīrtan, their prem kīrtan, because these are people, although they didn't know anything about Krishna previously, they just accepted what Prabhupada said directly. He said, Krishna's Supreme Personality God. Oh, okay, thanks. Malati says the first time she went out to preach Krishna consciousness, to teach the holy name, she had to bring a card with her because she hadn't memorized the mantra yet. Yet they went overseas, and as Prabhupada pointed out to some of his God siblings who were saying, these are Westerners, you can't talk to them. How are they going to do anything? They spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Some people say Prabhupada did it, but Prabhupada did it through his disciples. Gurudas, Malati, Mukunda, Janaki. They went and slept in a cardboard box in somebody's garage in London until they met the Beatles and blew up the whole Hare Krishna movement all over Europe and then America and everywhere else and so forth. Because they had some simple faith that Prabhupada said it, here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya is God, okay, thank you, and present. And then everything flowed from that. So my point was, when they went back to India, there was an inordinate response. People came running out. Where was it in Gujarat? Surat. Surat, most pious place on earth, what can you expect? But they went there, they're having a kīrtan down the road. People came running out. They were grabbing the dirt on the road where the devotees had performed kīrtan and smearing it on their bodies. And the devotees were shocked, actually. Like, hey, we're just mleccha-yavanas, whatnots, as Prabhupada says. And why are they doing this? And Prabhupada said later, because you follow 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds. He said, you'll be famous all over the world. And so, it's not a cheap thing. Nivṛtta-tarṣair, upagīyamānād. What do you have to do for this? Just die to the material world. Just give up everything, that's all. Just have no other interest except for Krishna. Then you'll be fine. Sure, no problem. But those who do that, and then they represent in a straightforward way what has already been presented, Prabhupada gives a clearer definition of that in the first Canto, 4th chapter, first paragraph, describing what it means to represent. He says, you should not try to screw out any new meaning from what the previous acharyas have said. Don't try to be a Muni and say, I have a different idea. Same thing. But he said, you should adjust the language to accommodate the local people, the local vernacular, how they can understand, build context. Say it in your own language, but say the exact same thing. Prabhupada said that is what is known as realization. And that's the great need. Notice that Prabhupada uses words in his commentaries like super spirit, super soul. Where do these things come from? Prabhupada's realization of how to present to a world population so that they can accommodate the concepts and the language and so forth. But straightforward, but with a way that people, in a context, they can understand it. Thank you, Mukarvin. Nice point. Let's take one more point. Are we already having to move the crowd? We having problems? If you see yellow vests, you should be very attentive. Everyone please move up a little bit. There's plenty of room here, really. I'm serious. I can get rid of this too, if you want. Not the book. See? Plenty of room. Go ahead. Plenty of room over here. We could fit about 50, 60 people on this side.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So you mentioned that a person can see the world in like a spiritual vision, and they can see like the rivers as like the veins of the Lord. And I was reflecting how in Ishopanishad it mentioned that the Lord is without veins. So how does this contradiction like resolve?
Well, Krishna has features to, any feature you see in this world originally comes from Krishna. So there's nothing Krishna doesn't have, but his body is transcendental. And so this idea of without veins means it's not an ordinary body. This is the idea behind the utterance of not without veins, because we're used to a body. If you take a little segment and go like, oh yeah, that's mechanical. His body's not mechanical. It's Satchidananda, but it doesn't mean that he can't have features. And therefore, the metaphor extending to the universe of seeing veins, the rivers as veins, it means that we understand that there's a body. There's a transcendental body. But that's the science of Krishna consciousness, to understand the difference between a physical body like this and Krishna's transcendental body, which is unlimitedly dimensional. Ekopya sora charitum jagaranda kotim yat shaktirasti jagaranda chayayaranta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. Krishna is, his form is unlimitedly dimensional. It's within every atom and all space and time eternally, all at one time. So it's not an ordinary body. That's the idea. Upanishads speak enigmatically. It's like, he's far away, but he's very near as well. It's like, what's with that? How are you going to prove that in a trigonometry class? Because it's achintya, and that's the whole idea of these so-called contradictory statements, is so you don't speed read through it. You look at it and go, wait a minute, this is a different kind of person. That's the idea. Okay. So are you satisfied with nivṛtta-tarṣair, upagīyamānād? The concept of it is that you just have to give up the material world in order to hear Krishna Katha properly. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. We'll have a table outside with a little form on it, and you can sign it at the bottom. I give up the material world. Doesn't mean you have to quit your job, but you just have to give up the optimism that I'm going to find some niche here in the material world and be happy. You should do your very best, says the Bhagavatam. Kamasya nendriya pritir labo jiveta yava. Jiveta means you have a life. You don't have to give up your life. In fact, you should organize your life so that you have vigor, you have vitality. And the reason that you have vitality is so that you can inquire about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can really lean into it. So that's the idea. Nivṛtta-tarṣair upagīyamānād. Bhavaushadach, medicine, it's medicinal. And when we take medicine, we also have to be patient. Means that's why we call somebody who's taking help from a doctor a patient. Right? Are you sure? Yes. Better ask AI. If that's the correlation. I looked up sound the other day. There's 3 meanings to sound that are completely different etymological sources. So I just want to make sure that's where it comes from. Patient means you have to be patient. There's something in Ayurvedic medicine also. What's the person called who's taking medicine from an Ayurvedic doctor? A what? A rogi. And what does that mean? Rogi sounds pretty bad. Okay, a rogi. Did you find it? You don't have ChatGPT? Okay, so now we're moving through 29 verses today. The next verse, you'll have to tell me where it is, but the next verse is Naishati dushaha shunman tektodam apipadate pibantam tvam mukham boja chutam harikatamritam. But in between every verse, we're going to have a little bhajan. That's our formula today. Does that sound okay? Okay. So, just so you know, in the control booth, we're going to sing Shuddha Bhakata, Sharanarenu, we like to sing this on special occasions because it's such a lively bhajan. And in it, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions the joy of devotional service in all its different aspects. Shuddha bhakatacharana renu bhajana anuku means that this association of pure devotees of the Lord, the dust of their lotus feet, this is what inspires our bhajan. If we have association with pure devotees, then we'll be inspired. And service to the devotees, this brings complete perfection. Paramasiddhi. Who would like Paramasiddhi? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And Prema Lati Karamula. It is the root of the creeper of devotion. And Madhavatiti, for the Akadashi Bhakti Janani, she's the mother of devotion. Jatane Palana Kori. Kṛṣṇa Basati Basati Bola Parama Adare Bori. All these are mentioned of the things that we do, the practice of devotional service and reminder. So we'll sing the song and then we'll go back and read the translation together. And we can see that the Abhishekam is developing over here. I see a cow and a huge snan patra, and the pujaris are moving about. So there'll be very soon, I'm predicting, an abhishek taking place.